A dream vacation can turn into pure horror in just seconds. Clear blue waters, sunshine, and laughter suddenly changed into panic and screams. What happened shocked tourists around the world and left everyone asking the same question: how could this happen so fast? The terrifying truth will leave you speechless. It was supposed to be a dream holiday. Sun, sand, and the breathtaking reefs of Egypt's Red Sea. But for one Italian diplomat, that vacation ended in one of the most horrifying shark attacks the region has seen in years. Gianluca Di Gioia was a 48-year-old official with the European External Action Service. His career had taken him across countries, and everywhere he went, he carried his love for travel, sports, and especially diving. He wasn't just some casual snorkeler. Diving was his passion, something he'd chased since his youth. So when he and his family picked Marsa Alam to celebrate his birthday in December 2024, it felt like the perfect escape. This wasn't about politics or work. This was about adventure, and one bucket list goal in particular: seeing the rare, gentle sea cows of the Red Sea. The family arrived in the so-called Egyptian Maldives, famous for its reefs, dolphins, and untouched beaches. Gianluca was in high spirits, celebrating his birthday on December 21st with his wife and friends. That night, he even struck up a new friendship with another Italian visitor, 69-year-old retired dentist Peppino Fappani. Like Gianluca, Peppino was obsessed with the sea and wanted to spend his holiday exploring its depths. The two hit it off immediately, planning to snorkel together while their families enjoyed the resort. But what started as a peaceful day in the water turned into a blood-soaked nightmare. On December 29th, Gianluca and Peppino set out to snorkel near the coral reefs just beyond the designated swimming zone. At first, everything was perfect. The water was crystal clear. Schools of bright fish darted around, rays glided past, and even small reef sharks could be spotted harmlessly weaving between rocks. It was paradise, or so it seemed. Neither man realized how far they had drifted. Their fins carried them past the safety markers into deeper waters. And waiting there, almost invisibly against the blue, was a predator far more dangerous than anything they had seen so far. A 16-foot tiger shark had been circling the area that morning, and now it had found its target. Gianluca dove down to get a closer look at an octopus hidden in the rocks. That's when the beast struck. In a split second, the shark launched upward like a torpedo, clamping its massive jaws around his waist and hip. The force dragged him violently to the surface, his scream muffled underwater before it erupted into the air. Peppino, just meters away, thought his friend had fallen ill, until he saw the water around Gianluca turn bright red. Without hesitation, he swam toward him, desperate to help. But the moment he reached out, the shark shifted its attack, tearing into his arms and legs. The beach erupted in chaos. Gianluca's wife and Peppino's family screamed from the shore, waving frantically for help. Tourists shouted, and workers scrambled to untie a nearby dinghy. But time was running out. The water had become a battlefield. Blood, thrashing fins, and the looming shadow of the predator circling back for another strike. And this was only the beginning of the horror. As Gianluca fought to stay afloat, Peppino did something most people would never dare. He went straight at the shark. His hands pounded against its rough skin, his fists smashing into its head again and again. But tiger sharks aren't frightened off easily. The predator twisted and bit down on his legs, dragging him underwater in a violent tug-of-war. On the beach, the scene was pure panic. Tourists shouted, children cried, and Gianluca's wife, Lawrence, was frozen in horror as she watched the blood-stained water. Resort staff were nowhere to be seen, and the seconds ticked by like hours. Finally, two locals jumped into a small dinghy and roared out toward the chaos. By the time they reached the men, the water was slick with red foam. Gianluca's body was limp, his arm nearly severed, while Peppino was still lashing out wildly, punching, clawing, doing anything he could to survive. Somehow, through sheer instinct, he managed to jab at the shark's eyes, forcing it to release him for just long enough. The rescuers hauled both men onto the dinghy, their bodies shredded and bleeding out. The shark circled one last time, but the roar of the old engine and the pounding of fists on the hull drove it back into the depths. The boat sped toward shore, coughing black smoke as it pushed to its limit. On land, crowds rushed to help drag the men across the sand. The sight was unbearable, Gianluca's intestines exposed, Peppino's hands and legs torn to ribbons. Their families screamed as they were carried through the resort toward waiting cars, desperate for any chance of survival. By some miracle, an ambulance arrived just as they reached the parking lot. The men were rushed to Port Ghalib Hospital, but doctors quickly realized the gravity of their injuries. Gianluca had lost too much blood. Surgeons tried for 2 hours, pumping transfusions and stitching massive wounds, but there was no saving him. He was declared dead, his 48th birthday celebration turning into a tragedy that would shake his family forever. Peppino's case was different. His survival shocked even the doctors. His arms, legs, and hands were torn apart, requiring hundreds of stitches and several transfusions. Yet the man who had stared death in the face refused to give up. According to hospital staff, he remained conscious far longer than expected, screaming Italian curses at anyone who got in his way of seeing his wife. Against all odds, Peppino lived. His recovery will be long, but his willpower had beaten the Red Sea's most feared predator. News of the attack spread like wildfire. Italian media named Gianluca immediately, his diplomatic career and adventurous life cut short in a violent spectacle. For Egypt, it was another blow to its already fragile tourist industry. Just months earlier, a Russian tourist had been mauled to death by another tiger shark in nearby Hurghada, a tragedy caught on camera and shared worldwide. Now, with a second high-profile attack, tourists were questioning whether Egypt's so-called Maldives were safe at all. And the deeper issue wasn't just sharks. It was what was driving them closer to humans in the first place.